Hi, welcome to my channel, my YouTube channel, Jenny Purple Owl. Today we're going to be teaching you all, I'm going to be teaching you all how to make a baby blanket, a hand-knitted baby blanket. This is how you're going to do. First, you want to pick out what color or colors you want to use. For this baby blanket, going to use just one color and one pattern. Okay, so first of all, you take your working yarn and you want to roll it up in a ball. And after you get that finished, you take your working yarn. You're going to make you want to make a knot, a first loop stitch. Um, you want to do a loop. You want to make a loop, and then you take your, okay, so basically what you're going to do is you're going to take your tail and go like this to make a knot, but do not make it a knot, but make it a loop. And you're going to take that loop and you're going to adjust it to the right size that you want to use for your stitch, the first stitch. And so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. So you're just going to make it a little bit smaller. So I made it a little bit smaller, okay? So now you have your tail and your working yarn. So now you're going to cast on, this is your first stitch. Now you're going to cast on 25 more stitches, so you will have 26 stitches for your first row. Make sure that you don't get your tail mixed with your working yarn, because if you get your tail mixed with your working yarn, you will it's easy to mess up that way. So make sure your tail is right here. I usually put the tail on this side of me and have the working yarn to my right. But if you are left-handed, you may do do it the other way around, the opposite way, where you may have your working yarn here and you do it this way. But I taught myself, since I'm right-handed, I taught myself how to do the right to the right. Do it in the right direction. Okay, to the right. So you take your working yarn, you're going to cast on 25 more loops. The loop starts the first row and starts basically the first row is the stitches. So I'm going to cast on 24 more loops. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So I have a total of 26 stitches. So that will be the first row. Okay. Now you're going to get to the last loop that you did, which is a 26 stitch. And this is a little bit tricky here. So you're going to take your yarn, working yarn, go through that loop there, and you're going to take that working yarn and loop it through the stitches of the first row that you'd have done. Okay. Basically, the first two rows are the two rows that is easy to mess up. Easy to mess up. And then the rest of the rows is basically looping it through the loop that you have made. So I will do this video until I get out of that yarn and have to get more yarn later. So this is basically demonstrating how to start the blanket, how to do a loop, how to do what basically the loop is a stitch, how to do a slip knot, and how to do the first two rows. The first row is the stitches, and the second row is to start the loops up to start the rows, and you basically keep continuing it. So whenever you get done with the second row, you want to start the third row. Whenever you start the third row, after you loop through that stitch on the first row, you want to take the working yarn, go through that loop and make another loop. And then you continue doing that over and over and over until you get to the the length that you would like the blanket to be. Now, for a baby blanket, I do 26 stitches on the first row. A throw size blanket, I do 32 stitches on the first row. On a full size blanket, I do about 40 stitches on the first row. And then a twin size blanket would probably be 38 stitches for the first row, and then the bigger size blankets would be more stitches on the first row. Okay. So, let's see. Okay. So you continue looping it through those loops that you made on the second row to do the third row, and you continue that over and over till you get the length that you would like. Okay, so let me get the third row finished, and then I will show you how to do the fourth row. So every time you do the rows, after you've done your first 2 rows and you get to your third row, you want to make sure that when you get back to the beginning or the either side, when you do a new row, that you add an extra loop to the end, so it will look right. So I will show you again when I get back to the right side of this. I will show you again what I'm talking about, okay? So just a second till I get back to it. Okay, I'm back to that for the end of it, okay? So I go through the loop with another loop, and then I do another loop again to start the fourth row. And then basically continue looping it until I get the desired length of it. And if I mess up like this, I basically loop it through and loop it one more time, and that's how you fix it. Sometimes you have to fix it that way. And that's how you fix it, so you don't have to panic and restart it. Because when I was learning and I messed up, I was like, oh no, when I restarted the whole thing. But I learned those tricks on how to fix it without having to restart it. And that's how you do it. So that's a trick I learned. And so that is how you start a blanket. Which in this case, a baby blanket. But a baby blanket and the other size blankets is basically the same way. For each blanket, this is the same way you would do each blanket. But you'll have, for each size blanket, you'll have different number of stitches for the first row. But for this baby blanket, I have used 26 stitches for the first row. So that is how you start a baby blanket, and whenever I get this baby blanket almost finished done, I will do another video and update you all on how to end the blanket and how to cast off the blanket. And for the baby blanket, you're probably going to have to do about 4 packages of yarn, and that should be good. So that is how you start the baby blanket, how you start any blanket. Just remember that each blanket size you're going to have more stitches or less stitches. So I hope that helps on how to start off the first row of stitches, and you cast on the loops to the second row, and then you continue going back and forth and adding a second loop to the row you are on. Whenever you start a new row, you add the loop to the row that you're working on, then you add another loop to that. So I hope that helps you all understand how to do a blanket.